When it comes to building a truly meaningful relationship, one of the most overlooked, yet most essential, qualities an introverted man should seek in a partner is emotional safety. Not excitement, not intensity, not butterflies, but safety. Now that might sound counterintuitive, especially in a world that glorifies the thrill of passion and the drama of romance. But emotional safety is not a lack of passion. It's the condition under which genuine passion can thrive without anxiety, confusion, or fear. It is the soil in which trust grows. And without trust, nothing else holds. Introverted men by nature tend to process the world internally. They think deeply, feel quietly, and recharge through solitude rather than stimulation. Because of this, they are especially sensitive to environments that feel chaotic, emotionally unstable, or filled with hidden expectations. They notice the shift in tone. They feel the undercurrent in someone's silence. They don't need shouting to detect conflict. They can hear the tremble in the quiet. So for an introverted man, being around someone who's emotionally volatile or unpredictable isn't just inconvenient. It's psychologically exhausting. Emotional safety, therefore, isn't just a preference, it's a requirement. It's the ability to be yourself without bracing for backlash. It's being able to express confusion, disappointment, or even silence without being punished for it. It's being able to admit, I don't know what I feel right now, and not have that used against you. For someone who spends a lot of time reflecting and self-monitoring, having a partner who reacts with patience rather than pressure is not just supportive, it's transformative. The right woman in your life will not make you feel like you're constantly defending your inner world. She won't demand that you talk just to fill space. She won't interpret your quiet moments as rejection or your alone time as avoidance. Instead, she'll approach your mind like a well-written book, something to be read with care, understood slowly and respected completely. She'll ask questions that invite, not interrogate. She'll wait for answers, not rush them. She will not treat silence as a threat, but as part of your rhythm. And in doing so, she will become the safest place for your mind to land. Now, let's be clear, emotional safety doesn't mean emotional passivity. It doesn't mean you never argue, never disagree, or never feel tension. Quite the opposite. Real emotional safety means that even in conflict, there is containment, there is maturity, there is no weaponizing of vulnerability. The goal is not to be emotionally flat, but to be emotionally stable. Someone who knows how to feel without becoming destructive. Someone who can cry without making you feel responsible. Someone who can express anger without turning it into shame. That kind of emotional maturity creates room for your introverted nature to come forward instead of retreating in self-protection. It's also important to recognize that emotional safety is a two-way street. You're not just looking for a partner who provides it. You must also be capable of reciprocating it. Introversion does not exempt you from responsibility. In fact, it heightens it. You must strive to be the kind of man who can hold space for another person's emotions without judgment, who can sit with discomfort without retreating, who can offer calm instead of control. The strength of your quiet nature is only valuable if it becomes a refuge for those around you, not a wall to hide behind. There's a psychological depth to this principle. In attachment theory, emotional safety is the prerequisite for secure connection. Without it, relationships default to anxious over, functioning, or distant under functioning. But when safety is present, connection becomes more fluid. Conversations deepen. Intimacy stabilizes. You no longer feel like you're managing someone else's emotions, you're sharing yours. This is the kind of relationship where an introverted man can truly thrive, because he no longer has to choose between connection and authenticity. Philosophically, you might think of emotional safety as the embodiment of grace in relationship. It is not something earned through perfection. It is something given through understanding. And when it's mutual, it creates a partnership that is far more profound than the highs of romantic chemistry. It is grounded, it is conscious, it is enduring. In the end, don't chase the partner who dazzles you with passion but leaves you drained. Seek the one who steadies your breath, sharpens your thoughts, and makes you feel at home in your own mind. A woman like that may not be the loudest in the room, but her presence will silence your doubts. And in her company, you will not have to shrink, perform, or escape. You will simply be. And that is the kind of freedom every introverted man deserves. Because in love, safety isn't the absence of fear, it's the presence of peace. One of the most misunderstood needs of introverted men in relationships is the need for space without suspicion, solitude without guilt, autonomy without judgment. This isn't just about personality quirks or lifestyle preferences. It's about psychological architecture. The introverted man doesn't retreat because he's distant or disinterested. He retreats to recharge, to process, to think. And what many people miss is that this withdrawal is not a form of disconnection. It's a prerequisite for deeper connection later. The right partner will not only understand this dynamic, she will respect it and even reflect it in her own behavior. Now let's be clear, space is not avoidance. There's a very real difference between emotionally checking out and intentionally stepping back to realign. The introverted mind is a complex system. It's reflective, detail-oriented, often internally turbulent, constantly reviewing the past, scanning the present, anticipating the future. This inner processing requires bandwidth, and that bandwidth is drained quickly by overstimulation, loud environments, frequent social demands, or emotional volatility. So when an introverted man steps back, he's not rejecting his partner. He's protecting the relationship from a version of himself that hasn't had the time to reset. This is where many relationships begin to erode, not because love is absent, but because one person doesn't understand the other's internal ecosystem. A partner who equates space with indifference will unknowingly start to fill that space with pressure, anxiety, or emotional punishment. The introverted man, sensing that he cannot safely retreat, starts to perform. He shows up, but he's not fully there. He talks, but he's disconnected. And eventually, the relationship becomes a theater of unmet expectations and silent resentment, all of which could have been avoided with mutual respect for solitude. What makes this especially challenging is that modern culture tends to romanticize constant connection. We praise responsiveness, we glorify togetherness, we treat silence as a flaw. But the truth is, intimacy does not require constant proximity. In fact, too much closeness without psychological breathing room can suffocate the relationship. You cannot grow roots without soil, and soil is made of space. The same is true for love. It needs pauses. It needs rhythm. It needs the quiet moments where each partner is allowed to be a full, independent person, not just an extension of the other. So the introverted man must be mindful of this when choosing a partner. Ask yourself, does she take my space personally, or does she understand it philosophically? Does she view time apart as absence or as alignment? Does she fill every silence with questions? Or does she trust that the silence has value? These are not minor considerations. These are the foundations of a relationship that either sustains your energy or drains it. And equally important is what she does with her own space. The ideal partner is not someone who merely tolerates your solitude, but someone who cultivates her own. She has her own interests, her own inner life, her own passions that do not rely on you for validation or direction. She doesn't wait for you to return from your internal world. She meets you at the edge of hers. And when you both come back together, the relationship is richer, fuller, and far more dynamic because each of you has grown in your own right. From a psychological perspective, this dynamic is tied closely to what's called differentiation. That's the ability to be emotionally connected to another person without losing your sense of self. Highly differentiated partners don't panic when their partner needs space. They don't assume the worst. They don't rush to fill the gap. They recognize that healthy love is not constant merging, it's secure parallelism. Two people walking in the same direction, sometimes holding hands, sometimes walking side by side, and sometimes alone, but always aligned. Philosophically, this is echoed in the writings of Khalil Gibran, who said, "Let there be spaces in your togetherness." The greatest relationships are not those where both people are constantly entangled, but those where both individuals are deeply whole, yet choose to be together. And that choosing again and again is what makes the love meaningful, not because it's needed, but because it's freely given from a place of fullness rather than dependency. When an introverted man finds a partner who honors this space, who doesn't chase him into his solitude or punish him for needing it, he will come back to her again and again, not out of obligation, but out of desire. He'll feel more energized, not less, more expressive, not guarded, because he knows he's safe not only to be with her, but to be away from her. And that level of freedom doesn't weaken connection, it strengthens it. So when you're evaluating a potential partner, don't just ask yourself how she treats you when you're close. Ask how she reacts when you need distance. Does she hold space for you, or does she fill that space with fear? Does she trust the bond, or does she test it? Because how she handles your solitude will reveal more about her capacity for love than how she handles your presence. The right partner won't make you choose between your solitude and your relationship. She'll help you build a relationship where both can coexist. In relationships, Introverted men often face a quiet but persistent frustration, being misunderstood not because they are unclear, but because the world around them values volume over depth, speed over intention. The introverted mind is contemplative, deliberate, slow to speak but fast to notice. It listens closely, speaks meaningfully, and prefers truth over noise. And yet, the dating landscape often rewards the opposite surface level charm, constant chatter, and fast, moving emotional exchanges that leave little room for genuine thought or introspection. This is why one of the most critical things an introverted man must look for in a partner is not someone who simply talks a lot, but someone who knows how to communicate deeply. Someone who understands that not every silence is a problem to fix. Someone who knows that conversation is not a performance, but an unfolding. The right partner doesn't force connection through constant dialogue. She creates space for the kind of dialogue that actually matters. Most people confuse extroversion with communication skill, but there is a profound difference between talking and communicating. Anyone can speak, but few can listen. Anyone can share opinions, but few can ask questions that reveal something deeper. And fewer still can sit in the discomfort of silence without rushing to fill it with noise. For the introverted man, this distinction is everything because his thoughts are often layered, nuanced, and rooted in internal processing. He needs a partner who can meet him at that level, not by talking over him, but by inviting him forward with patience and intention. Here's what that looks like in practice. A deep communicator will wait. She will allow you to finish your thoughts without interruption. She will not pressure you for answers on the spot because she understands that reflection takes time. She will ask questions that don't just skim the surface, but go into values, beliefs, fears, hopes. And perhaps most importantly, she will create an emotional environment in which it's safe to be uncertain, to explore, to admit not having everything figured out. This quality in a partner becomes especially important in conflict. Introverted men tend to withdraw when emotions escalate, not because they're avoiding resolution, but because they need time to process. A partner who demands instant emotional reaction will likely misread this as detachment or even disrespect. But a partner who is emotionally intelligent, who understands that deep reflection precedes deep truth, will give you space to respond, not react. That's the kind of person who turns disagreement into growth, not chaos. It's also worth noting that introverts are often more sensitive to language. Words matter. Tone matters. The way something is said can land just as deeply, if not more so, than what is said. This means a partner who communicates thoughtfully, with precision and kindness, can unlock emotional doors that might otherwise remain closed. She doesn't need to speak constantly. But when she does speak, she speaks with care. And in doing so, she creates a space where the introverted man can stop filtering his thoughts and start expressing them. From a psychological perspective, this ability to communicate with depth is tied to emotional regulation and self-awareness. People who communicate well aren't just good with words, they're good with emotions. They know how to hold tension without panicking. They know how to navigate discomfort without projecting it. They understand the power of questions, the importance of timing, and the need for mutual presence. This kind of communication fosters what psychologists call secure relating, where both people feel seen, heard, and accepted, even in moments of disagreement. Philosophically, think of communication not as a transaction, but as a mirror. It reveals the inner world of both the speaker and the listener. Shallow conversations reveal shallow minds. But conversations that explore meaning, purpose, emotion, values, those are the conversations that build the bridge between two souls. And for the introverted man, who often carries a rich internal life, this kind of dialogue isn't optional, it's vital. It's the only kind of communication that allows him to feel truly known. But this kind of connection only happens with the right person, a person who doesn't confuse silence with disinterest, a person who knows that asking, "How are you really?" carries more weight than 100 text messages, a person who doesn't need to talk at you to feel close to you, but who can talk with you in a way that makes closeness inevitable. When you find someone like that, someone who values clarity over charisma, presence over performance, listening over lecturing, you'll notice something shift. Your inner world begins to open. Your thoughts become easier to share. You begin to speak, not to impress, not to defend, but to connect. And that's when you know the relationship is built on something far more enduring than just chemistry or compatibility. It's built on truth. Because in the end, what matters most is not how much a person says, but what space their words create in you. Do they open you up or shut you down? Do they encourage depth or demand performance? Do they leave you more connected to yourself or less? Choose the partner who doesn't just hear your words, but understands your silences. That's the person worth opening your inner world to. There's a certain kind of woman who doesn't enter a room with noise or energy that demands attention, but with a calm that subtly transforms the space she occupies. She isn't performative. She doesn't exhaust you with drama or stimulation. She doesn't treat silence like an enemy or stillness like a threat. Instead, her presence feels grounding, like gravity. She brings clarity where there was confusion, peace where there was pressure, and energy that amplifies your own without overwhelming it. For the introverted man, this kind of presence is not merely attractive, it's essential, because he doesn't thrive in chaos. He doesn't find meaning in intensity for its own sake. He doesn't flourish under emotional noise or unfiltered reaction. He seeks connection, yes, but not at the cost of his nervous system. And that's why the right partner isn't the one who brings the most excitement, but the one who brings the most alignment. Most relationships fail not because there is no love, but because the energies of the two people are out of sync. One person may be constantly seeking stimulation, spontaneity, or emotional expression, while the other seeks structure, rhythm, and peace. When you force that alignment, when you try to change who you are to keep up with someone else's pace, you may temporarily preserve the relationship, but you will slowly lose yourself in the process. Introverted men are particularly vulnerable to this trap. They are often the ones who accommodate, who compromise too early, who remain silent to preserve the harmony, even when the harmony is false. This is why the energy of your partner matters more than most people realize. It's not just about personality compatibility, it's about psychological tempo. The introverted man is often more sensitive to tone, more attuned to subtle cues, more easily impacted by the emotional frequency of others. A partner who is erratic, reactive, or perpetually in motion will create a kind of background noise that you can never fully silence. You'll find yourself tense when you should be relaxed, distracted when you should be focused, distant when you should be close. On the other hand, the right partner enhances your energy. What? She doesn't demand your attention. She earns your presence. She doesn't pull you out of yourself. She meets you where you are. She adds to your peace instead of replacing it with her own agenda. Her calm isn't passivity, it's power. It's the ability to move through life without making every moment a performance. To feel deeply without making every feeling a crisis. To challenge you when necessary, but always from a place of respect, not reactivity. This kind of partner brings out your best self by making it safe to be your real self. She doesn't need to dominate the room to feel secure. She doesn't need to change you to feel connected. She listens with full attention. She speaks with intentionality, and she knows how to let things breathe. Conversations, emotions, plans, without rushing them toward a conclusion. In a world that rewards speed and spectacle, she's mastered the art of presence, and that presence does something remarkable to the introverted man. It allows him to relax, to exhale, to think clearly and speak honestly. It's in that state, not the state of hyperstimulation or forced socialization, that his creativity surfaces, his insights sharpen, and his affection deepens. He's not constantly negotiating his own peace of mind. He's not managing someone else's mood every hour of the day. He is instead expanding, becoming more of himself, not less. From a psychological point of view, this kind of dynamic activates what we call the parasympathetic nervous system. It's the body's rest and digest mode, the opposite of fight or flight. When you're around someone who constantly triggers anxiety, urgency, or emotional unpredictability, your body is in a low-grade stress response all the time. But when you're with someone whose energy calms you, who helps you feel safe without needing to be entertained, your system finally slows down, you become more regulated, more attentive, more available. And in that state, love stops being survival and starts becoming growth. Philosophically, this points to a deeper truth. Real love does not overwhelm. It awakens. It doesn't pull you out of your center. It brings you closer to it. A partner who brings peace is not boring. She is rare. A partner who quiets your mind is not uneventful. She is necessary. Too many people chase passion that burns bright but dies quickly. The wiser path is to seek the presence that sustains, not through fireworks, but through steady light. This doesn't mean relationships won't have tension, disagreements, or passionate moments, but the emotional undercurrent must be calm, not chaotic, grounded, not reactive. A good partner may challenge your thinking, but she won't destabilize your being. And in the long run, that's what matters. Because a relationship isn't just a series of shared experiences, it's an emotional climate. And the climate you live in every day will either strengthen your clarity or slowly erode it. So